Okay, we are live. 3, 2, 1. We are live. What's up, guys? John Sintes here, Cutternation podcast. Getting back into it. Got a special guest, my man, Dustin Geiger. Oh, I've got the wrong brand over here. I meant to,
Oh, no.
Dang. We got excited talking here. Let me drop this in here real quick.
Oh, good.
You guys get the bare bones of the podcast here. Oh, that's not it either. This little service is beautiful.
Yeah, it's the first time seeing this.
You have to upload it. All right, let me show you. Let's show everybody the behind the scenes stuff here. Unless we're liars, or we didn't say that.
It's all right. It's earlier over there in California.
Yeah, you know what? It's earlier. Here it is, guys. You're just gonna have to bear with me. You know what I mean? Sometimes you're unprepared. It happens. Right? It happens. Anyway, well, Dustin, you and I have met over the time frame here, and I ran into you, recognized you, saw the Durango stuff, and I was like, I got to say something to this guy because you came in after me when I was in Durango with the all-road season, as I like to call it, because we did not play a home game for 35 days, which was amazing. And for those of you who are just world travelers, it's not exactly fun to just live in a backpack and a baseball bag for 35 days.
Yeah, not going from Fiesta Inn to Fiesta Inn on every single Mexico city. It's not like you're in Cancun or Cabo every day either. You're kind of in the grind. So yeah, no, I hear you on that. There's literally a team called like the Road Warriors in the American or the Atlantic League. I couldn't imagine playing a 140 game season where
so
you have no home games. Like, and that's insane.
Yeah, exactly. This is where we're at. Yeah. So my first professional baseball experience was in the Pecos League. So, the drive yourself league is as well difficult. So I felt like I did the minor league difficult situation just in case something's going to happen. And, honestly, I tell anybody, like, if you understand what the Pecos League is, it's great because you got to get numbers, you got to play. It helps you create an identity for yourself to move on to the next level. But for sure, don't stay more than 2 years. I put 1.5 years in, and I was like, man, I am just over. If this is what it is, I'm out. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So why don't you do me a favor real quick? Introduce yourself to our audience.
Yeah, man.
Let's start off with where you're from, how you grew up, drafted, the whole thing. Don't leave it short.
Okay, I'll try to keep it short. It can get kind of long. Yeah, guys, Dustin Geiger. I'm from Merritt Island, Florida, originally, based out of Austin, Texas right now, though. Was drafted in 2010 out of high school, out of Merritt Island High, and then kind of a little bit of a journeyman in the minor league system, as well as kind of got a little bit international there, where went to Mexico for a couple of years to finish out my career. I guess I retired in 2019, maybe not officially, but my wife likes to think that I'm fully retired, so hopefully she doesn't see this clip. But who knows? I get in the cage every once in a while and think, I still got it. We'll figure it out. So, but having this passion for playing right now. So, yeah.
Yeah. So let's see, who were you drafted by, and what was you said you were the journeyman. A lot of people don't know what that means. So help us explain what the journeyman idea is here.
So I was drafted by the Cubs. I played 6 seasons with them. Was like 2010 to 2015. Got up to AA Tennessee with them, and then the journey kind of started. 2015, I got released about a month into the season. The other first baseman was like playing incredibly well, and I had a slow start, so it was like fully understandable. I jumped over to the Wichita Wingnuts, who are no longer in the American Association. Had one of my favorite managers ever, and Kevin Hooper, who I believe is the infield coordinator still with the Padres. Just like an awesome human being, awesome manager. We had a crazy situation happen where like two starters got hurt. A guy had to go pitch in like the Pan Am games. So they had to trade me, who at the time, and I was a little bitter about it at the time because I was like leading the team in average home runs and RBIs. So I was like leading in the Triple Crown categories, and we're 30 games into the season. It's a 100-game season. So I'm like, man, we're grinding. I'm having a great time. Says, hey, we're going to trade you down to Laredo. The Lemurs, who are no longer as well. Now there's the Tecolotes for and Dos Laredos for the LMB. for Mexico. But the shortest bus ride for that, we're talking about bus rides and grind. The shortest bus ride was 6 hours from Laredo to Dallas. That was tough. Yeah, you have a sleeper bus and this, that, and the other, but like, and that ain't it.
No.
From there, I got traded again to Gary, Indiana, for the Railcats. Some of you guys that, you know, are big on the indie ball circuit probably have seen Gary quite a bit. They do a great job of like giving a lot of guys their first chance at, I guess, more of like that next step up for indie ball, into the American Association. I know it's getting shaken up this year. There's leagues everywhere. So like, I'm not even fully into all of it. That off season, I get traded back to Wichita. So 2016, I start in Wichita again. Don't do well for the first like month. Get released. I got released in indie ball, and that's when I was like, okay, hey, this is 2016. I'm like, my career might be over, like completely over.
Right.
I just got released from independent baseball, and was very fortunate to get picked up by Fargo in North Dakota. And they're like, hey, we'll give you the same contract. You're good. Like, we know how you play, blah, blah, blah. And I went up there and I hit like 320 or something like that with a decent number of homers. I think it was like 9 homers and stuff in like 60 games. Good enough to where the Marlins gave me an opportunity to play in 2017. So went to there in 2017, did okay. Jeter came in that following year. There was a big kind of, you know, releasing of staff. Most of the players that were free agents on minor league deals didn't get picked back up, especially guys that hit like 220. I think I hit 220 in 2017. It was a joke. And then that off season, I went through and had a lot of like swing change stuff and approach change with hitting. And that's when like my like time, like I truly started to understand hitting, a little bit more biomechanics and just changing of approach based off of the player that I was. That was Cody Atkinson was the first person to ever be like that influence for me. When I was coaching with a select organization at the time, Cody actually came in, was talking to a bunch of the coaches. And I think funny enough, I was probably the only coach that was in that room at the time that like locked in and took it to heart. Everybody else, even now, is still kind of running the same philosophies and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, dude, you guys got to adapt. Like the game's changing. We have more data. We have we were able to draw better conclusions. So I walked in and you'll know Scott Lacey. Scott, I've seen you post some of his stuff sometimes. He trains players out of our building as well. And I walked in, he was doing some stuff with hitters at the time. I'm like, dude, I'm all in. He looked at me, he's like, what? I was like, I'm all in. I was like, let's make this swing change. I was like, it's, we're going to crush or I'm done anyway. Like I hit 220 last year, whatever, let's make a change. And so we made a bunch of adjustments. This is the first time I actually like got on hit tracks as well towards the end of that off season. So being able to track some of our data and like exit velos and all that stuff. Get a call from like the Can-Am League and they're like, hey, we're going to give you, it was like $4,000 a month. We'll give you $4,000 a month. We'll give you a 2-bedroom apartment. We know your wife's about to deliver a baby. So, we'll have a car for you as well. Oh, and because it's in Canada and Trois-Rivières, all of your insurance and stuff is just included because you're working here. So like your initial stuff with your baby and your wife is going to be great. I'm like, sounds pretty sweet. I'm like, okay, sounds good. Like verbal, I gave like a verbal in because I was still holding out hope that I was going to get a call for affiliated. I get it. Mexico calls me and they're like, hey, can you still play third base? I was like, yeah, sure. And I was like, well, but I have like this commitment over there. And they're like, no. Like, don't worry about that. Like this will be better. And they gave me a double that offer. They're like, the only obviously stipulation is that like you have to come to Mexico. And so I did that, like completely ignorant of Mexico itself, because you hear stuff, you see stuff on the news and all that, and you're like this, that, and the other. You get down there and I'm like, the people are incredible, like super hospitable. I was in cabs and people are like apologizing for not knowing English. I'm like, I'm in your country. Like, why should, like, I'm learning Spanish so that I can like converse here. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, why are you apologizing to me? So like super just warming and welcoming people. And then it helps when you play well too. So played for 4 teams.
They love baseball.
Love
it's
it.
So much fun.
Played for 4 teams in the summer league. I played for Hermosillo in the winter ball. And yeah, man, like 2015 to 2019, I think I played for like 12 different teams. Oh my God, played for 13 teams in 6 years.
This baseball reference list is long. It is for sure long. You've got some time. You've got some service time into it. It's exciting though. You know, you had some buzzwords and some things on me. I wanted to go back to your Wichita days. First of all, did you play with Jason or Josh Lowy? Did you happen to play with those younger guys?
So I played with Josh. Well, I played against Josh when he was in Monclova.
Okay.
He's like the freaking like strikeout king of the.
His nickname is El Rey. That's his nickname, El Rey, the king.
El Rey, the king. I mean, I do have. If I searched a little bit in my phone, there is a line shot of me. I think he tried to come in with a fastball, like in a 1-2 count. I had a freaking rope to left center.
Yeah, what are you doing?
And it's all right. He should have thrown me another changeup. I would have swung over the top of it. But yeah. So yeah, I played against Josh when we were in the All-Star game in 2018 together. Like we were all at the beach the day before. So yeah, I'm great dude.
Yeah, I grew up with him. We're literally from the same town. Like it's hilarious. So when I hear Wichita Wingnuts and about that time frame, so he's an interesting soul.
I missed him by a year.
Yeah,
I think he was there like in 2014.
So he's won a championship in every league he's played in.
Yeah,
which I'm not surprised, right? Like he won one in the Frontier League, he won the American Association, he won one in Can-Am, and then he went to Mexico, won one with Monclova, and then I think he did winter ball 1 year, and then just didn't like. There was some deal with it that he didn't like.
He pitched in the DR.
Yeah, for sure.
DR, and then
I know he pitched in Korea
a little bit in Korea.
Yeah.
My story from Korea, from what I heard, is like he shoves everywhere he goes, and then he gets over there, and they're wanting to mess with a pitch, and he's like, obviously, like I'm gonna try to help y'all, and I'll do what you ask. But he tried to mess with a pitch or create a pitch in the middle of a culture change, because it's not just like, hey, you're an hour time difference, like you're on the other side. I forget, like 12, 13 hour time difference.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a complete culture shift when you go over to Asia to play. And then, there's only like 3 imports, and they don't all have to be from the US. So you're dealing with a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, he tried to mess with a new pitch, couldn't figure it out right on the spot, I guess. You get a short leash when you're an import over there, especially if you go over halfway through the season. And like, it sucks.
Hey, guaranteed money though. That's one of the things about Korea, because he was there for a short stint, I think, and then still got all his money, which was, I was like, all right, cool, well, that'll play for sure,
especially over there.
Yeah. Okay, so you talked about swing changes, right? You talked about swing changes from year to year here, and I always find this incredibly interesting. I mean, there's just so many people that have been through this similar story. I'm a similar guy with maybe more of the mindset of the things I'm throwing. I'm actually, my dad just converted old high school and college footage of me, and I was just going through it. And of course, he put it in like an hour clip that took like 2 days to download, so I got to go through and edit it. But I'm just so disgusted by what I see, and I'm like, of course I was throwing hard and terrible. I was awful.
Right.
Those swing changes, what was the thing that really, made you, before, I know you're talking about the data and stuff, but as you were going, looking at your numbers and seeing what you were doing, why was it just like, I got to do something different? Because I think there's a lot of kids that may think they need to do that. And I don't think that they pick the right why. Like for me, right, when I'm throwing, my idea of what I grew up on as Braves fan of the 90s, which was, it was just pummeled in my head. Throw strikes, get ground balls, be efficient, don't strike people out. And, I was all state, a couple no hitters, touching 87, probably sitting 85 in high school, and just, unimpressive. That's pretty much the way I like to say it. And then that got me zero recruitment, and I walked onto a junior college a week before the fall semester like I was the new guy. And, so with you, you go through a swing change here in a pretty pivotal part of your career and see massive success. What was the, what were you seeing when you were playing that was like, something's wrong, something's off?
It was more, I think it was a lot of missed pitches to hit, or, bad ball flight on the pitches that I did get. I struggled on off speed quite a bit. I overcommitted on a lot of breaking balls. And then I would kind of swing over a decent amount of changeups. And I thought I didn't always do that in my career. There was times when stuff was going really well. So, for me, I mean, I had 8 years of experience before it was even like, hey, I'm going to just change philosophy. The way that it was presented to me was probably the biggest change. Cody had put together a freaking full-blown slideshow of what he was doing when he was the hitting coach at University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. He's like, here's how we're going through stuff. Here's the data. Here's the batted ball data of hey, you hit a ball, at 12 degrees, and every baseball, it was hit between a 12 and 14 degree window. And, I think it was whatever X year, guys hit 800. And it was like, okay, well, what does that look like? What does a 12 to 14 degree angle look like? And you're like, okay, so it's a line drive 4 feet over the middle infielder's heads. So using those numbers and relating them back to stuff that we've heard for our entire life, hey, hit line drives in the gaps or hit line drives over the infield. Mm-hmm. And then just being able to make my own conclusions on it. That was big for me. I also, there was some self-evaluation stuff that I went back and it was hey, when was I hitting well? And what was I thinking? And real quick, before I really get into that, this is kind of where I try to get a lot of my players to journal their at-bats, journal what they felt. Because the guys, you play, 4 or 5 games a weekend, and then you just kind of reset and do it all again the next week. And being able to make adjustments faster is going to separate people at a younger age, especially. So if you are able to, hey, this is what I was feeling in this time. Okay. Now how do I make an adjustment and get out of it? Or how do I stick with it? Or what do I have as a reference to go back to? I'm not feeling great today. What was I feeling last week? I was going well. What was my thought? What was my thing to get me to slow down or stay within myself? And then just being able to go fast transitions like that. Mm-hmm. That's going to be huge. I think journaling was a big thing when we didn't have scouting reports and stuff like that. Would go back into the clubhouse or bring a composition notebook into the dugout. And trust me, I got made fun of for it multiple times.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was going to ask about because even this day and age with digital, everybody's got their phone places, but you got a guy that I'm Doc Holliday did it. I know Greg Maddox did it. Roger Clemens did it, and it makes sense. Now, obviously, hindsight's 20/20. But if I would have written down some of the cues or even what I did to people and what worked and what didn't, it's just so much easier to remember. Yeah. The things to be successful and. With you and I have always connected, especially since, when I saw you beating me and the pocket radar off the tee exit velo challenge, I was just trying to represent for the POs in the in the showcase.
That's funny. I was hurting a little bit too. We had we were out with a bunch of people before that night before, and it was like, hey, come do this exit velo challenge. I'm like, no. They're like, you can win a pocket radar. I'm like, all right, fine. and then ran into Swingman. Ran into Yeah, and that was just like
the long drive champ for both sides of the ball.
Ran into Jeremy, and he's hitting balls at freaking 106 miles an hour from both sides of the plate off the tee, like still training and stuff like that. I'm like, dude, I'm just hanging out, like meeting people, like having a good time in Nashville.
You're
like,
cheating.
You're like, you're still working out. I'm like, I'm not working out anymore. I'm not playing. I need to work out. But anyway, that's besides the fact. But back to where I was leading with that, the first time anybody really told me to hit the ball in the air was 2012. It was Barbaro Garbe was my hitting coach. He was a Cuban guy, and he knew that I was slow. So it was like, hey, you have to get the ball on the ground. You're out. So in BP, if I didn't hit the ball in the air, he would kick me out of the cage. Now, to everybody like that obviously is listening to this, hitting the ball in the air just means that it does not hit the ground in the infield. Like that's what the idea of hit the ball in the air was. Like not hit the ball at a 45-degree launch angle, like collapse the back shoulder and swing up. Like it was like, hey, get good batted ball flight, hit like, high, like low line drive to high line drive, which if we're looking at numbers, then it's going to be probably like an 8 to a 25-degree launch angle, something within that window. And then if you're trying to let it eat or like, and you actually have the power to, you can elevate a little bit more. You hit the ball harder, you can hit the ball higher because those turn into home runs. But for guys that don't hit the ball very hard, like you have to find that window of like, driving a baseball just over the infielders' heads. So for me, it was, going back to what I was feeling when I was having success. I had 2012, I had like 17 homers in 75 games or something like that. Had a pretty good split.
That's okay.
Yeah, right. It was a pretty good split. I was very aggressive. I think I had like 9 or 10 first pitch home runs. So it was okay. What was I doing? I was being aggressive. I was hunting the fastball. And I think we're all on fastballs. So when I was, got to the point where, hey, I'm not catching up to velo. I'm swinging at breaking balls in the dirt. Something is breaking down mechanically. I just wasn't myself, and I wasn't having the success that I normally did. Let's take a look at mechanics now, knowing that approach is about the same. I was still trying to hit the baseball, on the line. Probably not as high as I was when I was hitting in 2012, but that approach didn't change too much for me to just not all of a sudden have all the success. So, we're facing guys like Michael Kopech throwing a freaking 98 mile an hour invisible. Fried faced him. It was a Straka for the Braves. We were facing dudes that were just coming up too, but at the same time, like I was 25 years old and 17, and I was like the old guy in high A, which is crazy to think about. And then, facing these guys, and I was like, these guys aren't any better than like when I was facing Aaron Sanchez, and I don't think I ever faced Stroman, but there's no reason I'm not having success against them. So it was definitely, there was a mechanical flaw. So that was my big thing. It was just, there was a lot of stuff that kind of compounded together that, made me go, okay, push the chips in. That doesn't mean that at 10 years old, you need to push the chips all in. There's obviously way more time for development than, a 26-year-old that,
it makes me wonder, the offensive strategy stuff. If I'm always looking, like I said, hindsight, you look at things, let's say, does 10 to 12 degrees change for a younger guy because of the field dimensions, or does it stay, or is it the same? Is that a consistent number?
It's pretty close to the same because of, the field size does change. However, the exit velocity that's coming off their bat is different. So it's it's lower, they're not hitting balls 95 miles an hour. So, if you're hitting the ball 65, then it'll still get over the infield at 12 degrees. But if you're only hitting at 45, then it might not make it out there. So your angles might change. Your angles might change slightly.
Right. I'm the weird trajectory nerd that's thinking about how does this work here? I remember seeing like the Rays that put the screens in the infield and you got to hit it over it and stuff like that, and just being like, That's interesting. And even the offensive strategy that I was kind of brought up to is as simple as it is. It's just hit it where they're not standing. You know what I mean? Like that's about as simple as I like. And I hit pretty well in high school, and then got to junior college and saw 94 with sink. It was like, okay,
I'm out.
I think, and I remember, I just specifically remember our head coach having a glove and a bat. And he goes, "Which one are you better at?" And I was like, "Well, obviously the glove, like throwing."
He's like, "Put the bat down."
You're not a hitter anymore. I was like, "All right, I'm fine. I'm fine. You're not hurting my feelings there. I was just hoping to help the team, you know."
Right.
Right. So, you know, you go in, you figure it out. Basically, that seems like what's carried you up until this point. You know, you being an instructor, helping young guys, you know. There's trends in this game, and that's what I've been enjoying about social media. Us connecting on this and connecting with all kind of brains across. You working with Bobby and Hitchrex. I'm really interested in your thought process with this data and seeing everything with the kids, because, you know, with me, I can see spin without seeing spin. I don't need the rap soda to tell me. You know, I'm not going to be exactly on the number, but I can tell on the sharpness of the movement or the straightness or whatever the idea is to do it.
Yeah, you're like, that's a banger, or like that's a loose breaking ball. Like you know, and now, yeah, for
and
sure.
the cue to fix it and stuff like that. On the hitting side, I'm not so familiar with, besides the angles and the other stuff, right? I do understand, you know. We have a rap soda hitting unit, and it's the same thing, right? I see the ball, I see it go down, I'm like, you top spinned it. And they're like, how'd you know? And then the data comes up, and you're like, oh, look, see the ball's rotating like you just topped it.
You use your eyes. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, this stuff wasn't around for, you know, until I think 2013 is when the first HitTrax hit the market. And they were kind of like way above, like they were the cutting edge stuff. Like, you know, we had golf simulators and stuff like that, but nobody had ever done it with a moving baseball, which is, you know, tough. To my understanding, nobody had done it yet. There's probably, you know, somebody will correct me on that, but that's the first thing that I knew about it. I didn't even see it until 2000. I never even heard of HitTrax until like 2017, because this wasn't a big thing yet. And it was still very questioned, I think, in the baseball community of using this data, especially in the hitting community, using data in order to make yourself a better hitter. And like, it's just a toy. You know, it's a very expensive toy. When it's like, dive down into it, how useful of a machine it is. It's pretty crazy. So, you know, my biggest thing with using tech is it immediately validates or disproves what you're trying to do. And I think that's why a lot of people are scared to get on it and use it. It's really easy to take a lesson client week after week, and if you don't have anything that's tracking it, be like, man, you're making real great progress. The only thing that you have to track is games, which is, you know, obviously number one. Like if you're not producing in the game, like you need to change something. But if we're not in season, then we don't have anything that we know is making adjustments. So, you know, parents are paying top dollar for instruction, and, you know, you're in an off season, you don't have any games. All of a sudden you go through 10 weeks before, you know, 12 weeks in between seasons. And then it's like, okay, well, you just probably dropped, you know, $1,000, probably a little bit more if you're doing camps and clinics and stuff too. And you have no idea if they're getting better. Versus for me, I'm challenged day in and day out, because like the numbers are there. Like their last week's average velo, their last week's, you know, I don't worry as much about like the max and the max distance and stuff like that. But like, hey, are you squaring the baseball up consistently? That's my bigger thing. And I can track that through average velo or hard hit average on the HitTrax itself. It's like, hey, you squared the baseball up today. Like you had, as well as line drive percent. Like, hey, you hit 60% line drives today, and your average velo was the highest it's ever been. I'm like, today was the best session you've ever had. Don't worry about the outliers of like, hey, you hit a ball really far, or like you topped a ground ball to shortstop and you hit it really hard. Like the hardest baseball, I believe, on StatCast is still Stanton at like 123. Yeah, and it was a double play.
Oh, it was the double play. I remember the ground ball that went. It must have been, maybe it was like 119, but he had a ground ball triple one time in Florida way back in Miami. It was like ball up the middle by the second baseman and went all the way to the wall.
I'd have to pull it up on on one of the sites, but I'm sure it's there. It was it was like 123 miles an hour. It was a ground ball, and it was a double play. So it was like, okay, great. Like your max velo. Everybody knows he hits the ball really hard. Your max velo is 123, but it's like you're still out. So like it's still like what happened on the field. You're still out. So back to what we're talking about, I guess with using the technology, what it allows us to do as well is give instantaneous feedback to players. And we're in that culture right now where everything's instant gratification. You got likes on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, whatever, shares, all that stuff. So you're at the instant gratification of being able to hit a baseball, look back, be like, okay, that's what it did. And then get back into the cage and hit another one. One of my kids the other day, he's eighth grader, hit a ball 95 miles an hour, and it was like 95 at 32 degrees, which is like a big boy, like a big boy swing. It projected it. I think it projected at 379 feet. And in the video, he hits and he like finishes a swing, and like as he's finishing, he's like already looking at the TV to find him. I'm like, Roman, can you just finish your swing first, please, before you look at it? It's not going anywhere. It tracks. I have video from you from 2 years ago on this system. Like, just swing. And but what it does, it adds like some excitement factor. It adds some compete, because kids are trying to beat their scores. They're trying to beat their best records and stuff like that. And if the coach is doing their job and guiding them to try to beat the right numbers, like I said, like line drive percent or average velocity, then it's actually going to, I think, really benefit them, and it kind of holds them accountable for their work, because they know, hey, I can't take swings off. If I take a swing off, my average velo is going to drop, or I'm going to hit a ground ball, my line drive percent is going to drop, and I don't miss
it. Yeah. So it's the numbers of that are very interesting for you to look at. Right?
Yeah,
that's pretty cool with HitTrax. We haven't got all the way into that with Rapsodo. But that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, we run into the same thing on the pitching side where, I try to put, I used to have the radar gun on the screen behind kids, and like, as they're following through, they're like looking behind them. Like, what are you doing? Like,
can you just finish,
they're like, I want to see it.
First?
Yeah. I'm like, it's there for 4 seconds. Like, I can change it. I can make it longer. I can make it shorter. Like, I feel like 4 seconds is enough, man. Like, it'll be there.
But instantaneous feedback. So now you have the radar gun in front of you down by home plate. They're able to like fully finish their pitch. And they're like, as they finish it, they can see the number turn on. So they're not in a rush to maybe change their mechanics or, have a mechanical breakdown just to look at the velo.
Right.
So, yeah.
So I want to get into a little theory here and training player development questions here, because we have. I'm sure you get a million questions every day. I know I do on the pitching side, but coming from your idea, I feel like this is going to be a little long question. When I get a new guy, and we're, even in April right now, this might be one of the worst Little League rec ball situations in California. Like, we are just constantly, the questions that I get from people that are asking me, they were like, well, we went to Little League practice and he threw, and then his arm hurts, and his coach told him to go ice it and, go home. And then we went online and started Googling, and we found you, and we're wondering what's going on. And I was like, well, what was he doing before practice? Oh, well, he just got off the couch and went out there. It's like, well, how's that? You just the lack of education is just, it's baffling sometimes. But in the same sense, in the 90s and the 2000s when I was growing up and there was nothing, like just baseball tonight, that's all you had was just like watch it on TV, no DVR, see what you can. And then now there's a surplus, right? There's an even category of YouTube coaches, people that are, that are just getting their information from there. And I don't necessarily feel like people are testing any of the ideas. Actually, a lot of the ideas that we grew up with, I know it's just secondhand from somebody else, and no one's tested anything. And that's kind of where I got stuck, in my career. So if I get a kid, I have like a little, to me, I try to make correlations of things, right? And they go, how long is this going to take? I'm like, well, it's going to take us 6 to 8 weeks, just like the length of spring training, in order for them to understand like what they're trying to do. Most of the time they come in, they see the radar gun, they're in a new facility. California's an outside place. They're not used to being inside. They're not used to getting they're not used to getting feedback on every throw, where they're like, oh, like just like you said, don't take a ball off. We set speed limits all the time on kids where we're doing little shuffle fire target practice games. And I go, it doesn't count if it's below 45. And they're like,
yep.
but my PR is 47. I'm like, that is literally the point. You need to learn how to throw hard and in the strike zone. We're just going to do it a little bit different way. And then we're going to create some points. We put a ball on the tee. We've got a couple different targets. And I go, either it's you versus me or it's me versus myself, right? And so just being engaged in that competitive game and trying to like beat something, like leveling up is what we call it, is something that's interesting. So I feel like, it takes 6 to 8 weeks to really understand kind of what you're doing to start this mastery process that turns into years, right?
Mm-hmm.
For you get a new guy, right? Like what's that time frame like? Is it less than pitching? I don't want to discredit hitting to pitching. I do feel like it may be more complicated than hitting. You know what I mean? But I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I want to know your perspective.
Yeah. The complicated, that's always a fun conversation. Which one's more difficult, hitting or pitching?
Right.
Now, when we're talking about like coaching it or making like the finite changes, I think maybe pitching is a little bit more difficult in that sense. Now, when we're talking about overall difficulty, like hitting takes it by far, but
yeah, for sure.
You're by yourself on the mound. You don't have to worry about the added influence of somebody else changing your ability, like what you're doing. So,
hey, allegedly.
Also get out of the way of 95 when you're getting rushed back, or like, oh, the slider's in the dirt, and like what you're throwing. The guy in the box does not know. So
reactionary, totally.
Yeah. The time frame. I try to get people to go at least. I try to get people to commit to at least 1 month. I think that's just an easier number for people to palate. The first month of like, hey, like I need you every week, for this amount of time. What I also try to do with it as well is obviously like Pelotero is helping me with this incredibly, like giving content for them to take home and work on their own with, with intent. Because that's what I think we see so much. And, we go to these rec ball situations and just the ignorance, the not knowing this of like, what do you need to do? Because whether either the parents didn't play or their coach maybe played, and not knocking people that have only played high school baseball, but like they might have only played high school baseball or less, and they're going off of what they were told 20, 30 years ago. So when we're living in the past in that sense, when we've come so far in player development, it's only going to hurt that next generation versus not to pat ourselves on the back, but you have guys that, have dedicated many, many, many hours to trying to figure out what's the best process, what's the safest process to get, velo jumps. And so why don't you like kind of, give us the opportunity, the people that have put in all this time, to give your kids a plan to get better. So I try to get people to come in at least once a week. I prefer them to come in multiple times. I'm in the middle of this shift to group training for multiple reasons.
Perfect segue.
Yeah. So it's like getting into group training, more competition based, more accountability, and higher frequency of being in the building for the same or potentially less cost of like a private lesson.
Mm-hmm.
So as well as when you're in the facility, but as well as like doing the right stuff when you're at home. If you have a plan, there's always something that can be done. There's people that don't have access to facilities all over the world. The Dominican Republic does not have access to our 10,000 square foot baseball facility with a turf infield, another 6,500 square foot gym, all on the same premise. Nobody has that.
Can't wait to see that.
Yeah. It's going to be tight. We want to get you out here at some point, obviously. But, people don't have that. They don't have technology. Like they don't have the $20,000 hit track system, like, and that's just per unit. So they get it done without having all that stuff. Okay. How do they do it? They work, they're constantly training. When you're at the house, I have guys try to bring a tennis ball to the house. I'm like, do your defensive drills at home off the wall. Make mom and dad be like, put the ball down, go to bed. That's what I grew up playing. I literally remember playing ball in the hallway at my parents' house with my brother. And like the goal of the game was like, get the ball by the guy, like get the ball by. We called it like wall ball or hall ball or whatever. I don't even remember what we called it. But it was like, hey, I'm a goalie, you're a goalie. Try to get the ball by it. Oh, and you have to like catch it. You can't just like body it up or, you know, adding different variations of making stuff fun, competing to also develop a skill.
Yes,
yeah, exactly. Like just make stuff up, like have fun, be athletic, like just do stuff that, you know, is going to help you develop hand-eye coordination, you know, body awareness.
So the skills, right?
Sure.
So oh man, there were so many beautiful pieces of information right there. The skills and the development are something that we look at in that same time frame. So I want to go back into that group idea for what we were doing and the frequency thing, right? I think the message that we are trying to convey is that if you actually understand what training like a professional major leaguer is, it's actually not that hard. You're just not allowed to do it because of the time frame, right? It's just like you said, like frequency was the key word that got me going on that, because I don't think I knew what every day was, but I also didn't know what every day was, because I thought every day was like an hour or hour and a half, and like not until you're trying to maintain 96 miles an hour with all your pitches and you do all your stuff. You know, I remember telling my wife right now, and she was asking me when I was kind of seeing how things were going in my career, and I was making this transition from Florida to California and getting into the market. She was like, well, you know, she would be like, you're gone like from like 8 a.m. to like 2. Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm at the gym, throwing sliders, sprints, mobility work, like watching video, trying to figure it out. And then like 2 o'clock, I got a session. Right. And then I've got, you know, a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And she's like, you don't come home till then. What's going on? I'm like, it takes me like 6 to 7 hours to get all this shit done, you know, and I got to start here because I got to be done by here. And then I got to do a whole nother thing and work and show all, you know, do all your stuff and then go to sleep and wake up and do it all again. And that's when I realized I was like, I just don't have enough time in the day to maintain 96. And I remember my last season I went to play, I couldn't get over 92. And I was like, all right, here's the answer. This is definitely, let's ride out in the sunset. Let's win a ship and then get out of here, you know? So, you know, it's very obvious that, you know, same thing with the Dominican. I'm not sure if you ever got a chance to go to the academy in Monterey, but like I saw a 12-year-old go 90. It blew my brain away. And then you find out he's a former big leaguer. He's 5'11", and he's never played travel ball or T-ball. Like he's never played that. So it's like the kid never wasted his time from 4 years old. And I get, you know, I had a 6-year-old in the other day, and this parent was watching the 6-year-old, and they were like, I can't believe the 6-year-old's working with you. And I go, the dad literally wants him to learn how to throw better now. And so we're just going to give him 2 to 3 years. And he's also like this judo master champion at like 6 years old too. And he's like, we're not even playing baseball. He wants to play baseball. Right. And we hit and do stuff here and there, but we just want to learn how to throw better. He's like, he can't throw the ball to me, and I don't know how to explain it to him. I'm like, all right. And so the kid started off at like 31 or something like that. And then yesterday hit 40 in like 3 weeks. And the dad's like, that's crazy. I'm like, you don't understand. 40 miles an hour is not that fast. Like, it's just right. It's
like 9 miles.
But they see the 9 miles an hour. Yeah, they're like, that's crazy. I'm like, well, he was kind of pushing it from his ear. So it was like all wrist there. That was pretty much the only thing that was working. So he hadn't even found something to like bring that freaking arm all the way through or anything, you know?
Right.
So yeah, it's interesting. So in a perfect world, you're saying, I'm seeing you every week. Give me a month. Right? Or every day. If I could see him every day for a month, we're going to see some drastic, you know, type stuff. You know, what do you see as a common increase that's very simple to understand? Maybe not in the data, right? Is it awareness? Is it, because I just see they're being more comfortable on the mound with them. And they're like, oh yeah, we start talking about how to get guys out. They start executing a little bit more. They understand that they can start doing, like moving the ball on purpose in certain places. But what's that for a hitter after a month?
I think, you know, we're going to see them square the baseball up more within their, you know, not obviously getting into data. Like we're going to see them, you know, flush the baseball more. They'll hit the ball more consistently on the barrel, which is, you know, hitting. Obviously, if we hit the ball on the barrel, we're going to have a better time. a little bit better awareness of the strike zone, what pitches we need to swing at, what pitches we can handle versus what pitches we need to continue to work on. Typically have players that have, better athleticism, better balance in the box. They're grounded better. They have better understanding of how to use their body. Those kind of the basic mechanics of for me, like balance is so important. Hitting, pitching, whatever. If you start getting off of your center, then everything kind of falls one way or the other. So just that's one of the first things I try to get guys to do is just be super balanced in their setup. I don't mess with their setup very much unless they're like completely absurd and then not getting into a balanced hitting position. So that's one of the first things I attack in the first month of their training is making sure like, hey, here's about where we want to land. Oh, by the way, here's 60 videos of MLB hitters that like they all get into the same position, but look, that they all start differently. A big pet peeve of mine is when coaches, the first time they work with a player, they're like, hey, spread your feet out, get down, hands right here. I'm like, you're like cookie cutting swings based off of like what you were told forever ago. I'm like, it's not that simple. I very rarely change someone's setup in the first 2 weeks of working with somebody. And then, yeah, like I said, we're going to see better balance. We're going to see more consistent barrels. They're going to have better strike zone awareness, and they're going to have an idea of what they can handle and what they need to continue to work on.
Yeah, it's man, it's funny that when you see them like do the same thing, you cookie cutter, right? I've been really onto this because everybody just walks in, they say the same word every time. Mechanics. He needs better mechanics. I'm like, you don't even know what you're saying. You don't even.
What is mechanics?
Yeah,
like, what do you mean?
You're not at Firestone. You're not at the body shop, like trying to work on your engine or something. It doesn't work like that, right?
Right. They're not all the same.
Right. Oh, and the other day I asked a parent too. I said, "Have you ever seen two pitchers throw exactly the same?" And they're like, "No." And I'm like, "That if mechanics doesn't get fought on that idea, like that's it." Now the ideas of the movements of what's happening and the positioning may be called mechanics, but even then, a lot of people are teaching the middle of the throw. Like I see this in the online more than anything, and like you can't feel this. Can't feel it. Like it's a position that passes through. Yes, you want to be on time, but there's people teaching starting there, and they don't even realize that that's half of it, and you can't feel where it is. And so I'm sure you see the same thing on swings, and how it goes there, and it, like it's what I said, it's been very easy for us to communicate over these ideas and how the game's going, and that's what's been fun about talking about this higher level game. And that's where I want to go with this is. That I'm playing. I know I'm playing a different game. It's what every time like somebody gets in the box, and I'm playing a speed range game of like fast, medium, slow. I'm staying out of commonalities that happen in the big leagues. Like normally most things don't happen 3 times in a row, and so or if they do, it's almost guaranteed the opposite on the 4th, right? If it's 3 heaters, then it's going to be a banger. If it's 3 bangers, then it's going to be a heater. There's these little things that we learn as we're playing in the game, and I know that could be considered an approach, but I just find that every person has this idea. Like I saw your little smile right there, right when I said that. And like, if you were to give somebody one thing, you know what I mean? Last night we were watching. I did a little advanced BP session with some guys, and I moved back a little bit, get to the edge, and then we set up the radar gun, and I try to stay around 80, and then I'll dice them up. So I'm basically from like 52 feet, and I'll just be like, all right, we'll start fastballs, and then we're just going to go fast, slow. And I'll say fastball, curveball, right? And I'll try to keep the speed range of the curveball within like 10 miles an hour, or if not slower. If it's above it, then it's a little too easy for them to see. But trying to make them make decisions based on the initial movement, whether it's up or straight, right? So, with you on that, what do you feel about if you were to give somebody that little secret idea, maybe not the full secret, right? But maybe just the one little thing that you were like, this is the thing that I know it's a thing, and I know that, young guys or even old guys could use it.
Yeah. I do that similar I can't throw a freaking good curve. I'm gonna have to work with you. I can't throw a good BP curveball.
I'll be there. We'll get it.
Dude,
we'll get it.
That's a mess. I'm like, it was funny. I had a 12-year-old kid came in the other day. He goes, "Hey, can you throw me curveballs in BP?" I looked at his mom. I'm like, "Do I have consent to like miss and I'm gonna hit him?" And she's like, "Yeah, he's got a helmet on. He's fine."
Sign the waiver.
Like,
sign the waiver.
Yeah, you signed the waiver, right? You guys checked into the front desk. All right, cool, good. Just wanted to make sure, right? Cover my butt. But yeah, so I do like doing that. I've done that with a couple of my high school players specifically, where they, my cages are a little bit shorter. That's one thing I wish that I had. I wish I had a longer cage that I could do stuff like at 52 feet. But we do high velo machine, which I think is big, just for like forcing the body to start, taking the mental break away from like recognizing. And if your body's not syncing up, then like, hey, you're getting beat. Start earlier. Get uncomfortable with starting too early, because you can always slow down time, but we cannot create time. And that's something that's a saying that I'll kind of use with my guys is like, hey, you can't rush. Whenever you see anybody rush with their pitch or rush with hitting, and like the timing is like, slam your front foot down, shove your hands forward and push to get to the baseball. Like, versus if we're early, like, yeah, you might go get it, but that's just, a byproduct of you not being able to hold your posture or hold your body position forward or backward, or hold your hold your torso back. So, that's where we'll do that increase. When I have players that have a difficulty with like super difficulty with timing, I'll do something similar. I stand at about 33 feet and I try to throw, I think probably just under, it probably comes in like right around 60. I'm getting like at plate velocity through hit tracks. So it's usually like 56, 57 plate velocity. So it's about 60. But it's out of the hand, as well as I'll throw from a set. And then it's like, hey, when do you got to get going? Oh, right. And also you have to recognize like where the pitch is and stuff like that. So I use that. Talking about like how to train for like the fast, slow thought process. A 3-plate drill is probably one of my favorites that I need to do more. Honestly, it's one of my favorites, and I used to do it a lot. I picked it up when I was with the Marlins, actually. One of the few things that I think that I really held on to from them, from the hitting philosophy side, was, you have your normal home plate, and then you'll do progressions where you walk up and then you walk back. The pitch speed doesn't change, but your perception of timing changes. So, your reaction time changes. So all of a sudden, we're standing at, I think, and Lacey can attest to this. He's like, this is one of the most incredible things. I was like, I would be 20 feet from the machine throwing, 55 miles an hour, and like still able to make pretty good contact. It's like, how do you do that? It's like, you're swinging, you're swinging. Right. Which in hitting that, like the yes, no approach of like swing until it's a ball, you're swinging until it's a ball. It's literally what's going on. So you're like, commit. Okay, release. The walk up and then walk back is one of the bigger ones for me. It's just going to start getting guys to understand, hey, you need to start earlier. And now I want, when they work their way back, I want you to start at the same time as you were when you're up front, but now like have an understanding of maybe you put your foot down slower, or, start putting your foot down a little bit later, but get it up early, be able to slow down time rather than, having to try to create it.
That's solid. That's good. I've never heard that drill. That's amazing. That's I love how it's the timing change about it is. Yeah, the situation. It's funny. I feel like we're watching the game, but most people aren't watching the game. Like they don't understand that the situation will actually tell you what pitch is coming or what scenario or what fast slower is. And so last night we were watching lefty on lefty. Let's see if we can do this. I bet you get it. I know you will. Lefty on lefty. Runner on second, 6th inning, 1 out. Fast or slow first pitch?
Well, how many outs?
1. 1 out.
1 out.
Runner on second, 6th inning, lefty. Oh, and the lefty's a reliever that just entered the game. He just entered the game.
Like first pitch entered the game. I see. I would go off speed.
Yeah,
every time I see
it's like 99%, right? I went through.
You got a guy coming out of the pen. Doesn't matter if he throws 100. Like the first freaking pitch is a slider every time coming out of the pen.
Every time, and it was hilarious. They were all like fat. One of the guys knew the reliever. He's like, "Oh, this dude throws 98 for sure, banger." I'm like, "Okay, here we go." fast, and then he threw a 91-mile slider, and the guy was like just completely out front,
which is fast anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Right, right. Slow to him, right? Exactly. So it was, it cracks me up. I just feel like people aren't playing the game, and so I've come up with this sheet of these things that I'm trying to help on both sides of it, where if you can categorize a pitcher into two speeds, it's actually easier to understand what's coming instead of worrying about the names,
Yes.
And so in that situation, the guy ends up going slow, fast, right? He ends up going to 3-2, gets a foul ball. And I was on the whole thing because they didn't realize that the reaction of the hitter was telling the pitcher what to do, right? So he looks ugly, absolutely disgusted, bad body language after he misses the slider, comes back. Obviously, he's going to throw it again, throws it again. Guy does the same thing in the big leagues. And I'm sitting there telling these kids, I'm like, this is what happens if nobody's paying attention. And he's like, and the dad goes, why do you think he's paying attention? I go, well, the hitter is not looking at the pitcher. He's swinging and turning around and facing the dugout. So he's not even in the at-bat. He's just out of it because his body language and his focus is away from it. So he's trying to figure out, why did I just miss two sliders that were right there, right, or that I thought were fastballs, and what's coming now, right? He gets back in the box, goes fastball up, starts his hands, and just misses it. And it's like, man, this guy's done. He's guessing. You know what I mean? He's jumping at the ball because he's got to worry about 98, which respectfully, right? You got to worry about 98. You have to, you got to be ready for it, And so it's, like I said, it's a funny game to watch, as people go through, because you just expose these ideas and these things. And in high school, the most common sequence they see is fast, slow. It's just like autopilot. Like you're going to get fast, slow, or fast, slow, fast. It's just what it is. Sorry, And then it's even worse when you have pitching coaches and high school pitching coaches and college pitching coaches, because it's called pattern recognition is what it's called as a hitter. And if you realize that there is one person calling the pitches for everybody, that guy's got the pattern. You don't even have to pick up the pitcher. You can just be like, what's this dude's common, flaws in what he's doing? So, it's a fun game to like theorize over, because you still got to hit the ball, right? You could be on, you could absolutely be on and still foul it or miss it, or
they can be hammering the trash can, but if you you still got to hit it.
Dude, that ball that Altuve hit off of Chapman still is like, frustrates me. I'm like, he throws the heaviest, most deceptive 101, and he was out front, hanging out over the plate on an 89 mile an hour 3-foot slider, and he hit it out. I'm like, of course he knew what was coming. Of course he did. You can't not hit that pitch unless you know it's coming.
Yeah. No, it was funny that looking back at that, if you're talking about body language again, I remember when Chapman gave that up, he looked like pissed that he was like, I think Gary Sanchez put down slider like multiple times.
Yeah.
And he's like shook him the first time. He's like, all right, whatever. And then throws it. He gets the homer. He's like, that's when they're like, saw him smiling.
Yeah. He's
and
like,
he got a bunch of flack for that. He's like, yeah, I told you.
Yeah. Exactly.
Trusting the catcher, all this, that, and the other. So a couple big things right there. Body language. Determining, from a hitter or a pitcher listening to this, like, I think that body language is going to tell a lot. Body language can immediately enact confidence in your opponent. If you look all pissed off, then, the opponent is going to be like, hey, I got this guy. He's all in his own head. They all of a sudden, they relax. Guys, when you relax, you end up performing better. Your mechanics are better. You have more flow. You have more confidence in your stuff. You're more prone to execution. And so body language was a big takeaway from that for me. So, just making sure that relax. You can also trick the pitcher sometimes with that body language stuff. I've seen that a bunch.
That's some Manny stuff.
Yeah.
Fall down in the box first.
I could never do that.
Huh?
I could never do that. I don't know how he did. He would take freaking three fastballs right down the middle for strike 3 just to set up a later at bat and stuff. I was hearing stories about that. I'm like, this guy's the best hitter ever. And then
he's
also,
on another planet for sure. He's on another planet.
I don't know how people can think about doing that. And then the other topic would be pattern recognition. When you are on the bench, paying attention, helping your team in different ways rather than just sitting there like we call like fake energy, like the yelling at the pitcher and all this, that, and the other. It's just fake. It's so, oh my gosh, I'm gonna go take a nap. Yeah, I was talking about this with Tewksbury the other day, and I remember my high school, like we were like super loud and all this, that, and the other. And he's like, yeah, but was it like fake energy or was it like you guys were genuine excitement? Because we averaged like 10.3 runs a game my senior year of high school or something like that. But yeah, I was like, for the most part, I was like, there was a lot of fake energy. The reason that conversation even happened, there was a local high school that they lost like a close game, and the head coach was like, he's like, our dugout lost us this game. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? The dugout lost the game. The dugout wasn't in it enough. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. Right. It's the same. That's the same idea when I tell
the other team you lost.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't the dugout didn't lose the game. The only way the dugout loses you the game if you got your studs sitting on the bench instead of like getting them in the game to score more runs.
I tell parents all the time. I'm like, what's the coach do in the game? What's his job?
Yeah, manage the game situations, put the right people in place.
Right, he writes the lineup and he tells you to score from third. He's literally not playing the game. I don't even understand why he's so mad. Why is he mad?
Yeah, you're done. Like your job. Other than like, you can be mad if you like put the wrong person maybe into the situation, or your hit and run call wasn't executed, the play wasn't executed.
Right.
Depending on the attempt, like there's good and there's bad. But I mean, my goodness, like half the time. We could have an entirely another podcast just based off of like stories from coaches that I hear on a daily basis, and I'm not to try to call anybody out. Obviously, I'm not gonna like, I would never say names or stuff like that. But what I'm hearing, but it's it's just tough. Like day in and day out, I get, well, his coach did this, his coach said this, and I'm like, are we even trying?
Yeah. Well,
like it comes back makes me want to just make a freaking team, like make a high school program and go and just beat up on everybody because just play the game of baseball.
We'll talk about that. I totally agree, man. Because it's once you understand that he's not playing the game and you are swinging the bat and you are throwing the ball, like I don't even care anymore what you're saying, right? Mm-hmm. Like if I'm in the middle of the game and you're trying to talk about the height of my elbow or my knee not getting up to where it is, then I'm not thinking about me assassinating the guy in the box. It's just not the process of what happens. It just can't happen.
You're worrying about mechanics, or versus worrying about like completing your approach or executing your approach.
Right. He's not getting his foot.
The time to prepare is done. Mm-hmm. So now it's like now we're into execution time, and that's what's funny is I've seen that plenty of times before. Like, hey, when the game comes, it's not time to practice anymore. Your preparation has to take over. That's why we talk about preparation. Mm-hmm. So like, but coaches need to let it happen. Like the number of times I give a mechanical cue in the third base coach's box is 0. Like the only thing we can say that there is maybe a timing cue. Hey, get your foot up a little earlier. Yeah. Like start sooner.
Like, don't say that with me on the mound though, because I can hear you.
Right. Right.
There's the other thing too. Is like there's so many coaches that I remember playing and remember them being like, "Hey, move up in the box," and I remember being like, "I can hear you." Like now I just throw a fastball. I don't even understand.
You're like, I'll just go in with a fastball. You just gave yourself less time to hit this.
Oh, you weren't on time. How'd you not be on time? I don't know. You moved up 3 feet, which completely sped the pitch up to your 3-plate drill, by the way, which makes total sense, right? Mm-hmm. So it is a weird but yet fun game, and there's help and things that happen all the time, and I feel like we addressed some surface things right here. I don't want to eat up too much of your time. We're right about an hour right now, and I mean, you and I have little oxygen on this podcast, so I'm not surprised that we every time we get together, it seems to be that time flies. Like, I can't believe it. I feel like 5 seconds ago we just started this thing. So,
it's usually Dustin, I really at midnight.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like, what happened? Who's
I had to wake up early,
right? Yeah, exactly. It's on the grind. I gotta get you on that thing going, especially if you're getting that high school thing going. So, but dude, why don't you let everybody know? Okay, so where are you? if you're in, I'll ruin it a little bit. If you're in Texas, right? He's somewhere in Texas, that big state. Where are you? How do they get a hold of you? What's the plans? What's coming up in the future for you?
Austin, Texas, just north. Technically we're in Leander. We're about 20 minutes north of the city. But yeah, anybody. I have guys that drive down from Waco up from San Antonio. They drive like an hour and a half each direction just to come work out with us. Nuclear Baseball Instagram. I need to be more active on it, but I do post a bunch more stories than posts. My website's nuclearbaseball.com. Also, the facility that I'm helping run right now is 1A Performance Center.
Beautiful.
We can
beautiful
kind of go through that, and that talking about from a facility standpoint, it's an all-inclusive. Like there's, I think I mentioned it earlier today, 6,500 square foot gym. There's a turf infield. There's 10 outside cages that we do live at bats in whenever the weather's bad, and then we have 10,000 square foot indoor with all the tech and all the fun stuff that everybody likes to see now. So we come see us. Obviously, if you're in the greater Central Texas area, and we'll be putting together some pretty cool stuff here in the not so distant future, and just trying to affect and change and help as many players on the hitting side, as well as we have some good pitching guys too.
Yeah, Scott Lacey is. He and I. Mm-hmm. We have good conversations about particular individuals that you and I know that I'm always like, what are we doing? I'll have to tell you that off air about some stuff, but I was like, what are we doing? Like, I'm confused, I know. So it is what it is. So, well, dude, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for your time. Guys, go give him a follow. If you happen to be in Texas, please, him or anybody at that facility. I can't wait to get over there sometime. We're going to have to do an event and do some fun things. Maybe you'll step in the box. We can have a little tango, a little. I'm
going to have to start hitting again.
We'll make sure we give everybody enough time to get ready.
I need some lead,
we need. I'm not saying tomorrow. You know what I mean? It's not. Right. You're not getting thrown into it right now. I haven't stopped throwing in about 12 years, so I'm just going to keep thing. I'm going to keep this guy running. You know what I mean? I think I was joking around yesterday. I think I threw BP 4 different times yesterday, and then in the last session, and we were counting it up. I think I threw over 1,000 baseballs yesterday. And they're like, "How do you do that?" And I was like, "I know how to throw. It's pretty simple."
I know how to throw. I use my body, and also it's not like I don't just stop on ice after the day.
We're like 20%. I was immediately like doing bands and just like hitting ISO holds. And his dad was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, I just got done throwing. I need to flush the arm and the shoulder." And he's like, "What?" It's like, "Aren't you going to go ice?" I was like, no, why would you ice? That's terrible. There was actually a study that came out the other day, which makes sense that I've seen this on one of those like Hard Knocks hockey things. But apparently if you cycle, like if you just do a bike for 10 minutes at like medium to low effort, which sounds like what you and I would be doing on our phones if we're working, like we're on a bike, 10 minutes after whatever activity you did, the flush that goes with it is actually more beneficial than a stim unit, which kind of hurt my brain for a second. I know, 10 minutes on immediate, right. And so it kind of makes sense on the blood flow idea, right? Because it's active, but that's kind of a hockey move. That's what I saw in there. They get done. I think they have like a 20-minute ride at the end of their game, which is crazy thinking about how aggressive hockey is, right? Like just full, it's like 3-minute sprints on the ice and like 6 minutes off or whatever that rotation is or something like that. But
I wonder if that's like a blood circulation thing too, because of like it has to go through like, you're worrying about more of the total limb or the bigger location rather than a stem unit. Where it's
interesting. Like, I felt it real interesting. Like
I don't know.
I like just to get on the bike just to like warm up. Like when I used to go. When you used to go to a gym, remember when you used to go to like this warehouse gym? Right. Mm-hmm.
Now I just do everything in my garage. So
I just go to work early and just move around. I'm like, love being by myself here. This is cool. Mm-hmm. Anyway, well, dude, this is great. Guys. We got to do this again. We got to get more people. I can have 10 people at once on this thing, so it's pretty exciting. So I really want to do a roundtable and get some more information. I appreciate your brain and you taking a little time out of your day. So thanks again, guys. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to check out any of our gear. It's always strikeout season. I've been trying to push that up just a little bit, so you can make sure you see it as well. We got to get you some shirts running too on there. Get the world and the baseball world need better, and then better pitching shirts and better hitting shirts because there's just not enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we'll go exactly.
I'm a big Nike fan, right? Big Nike fan, but we could do better. We could just do better, Nike. No, it's just throw their logo. Like, let's get a little cocky with it, right? Yeah. Right? Let's throw some nukes out there or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I need to make some better apparel too. That's on my list of my long list of stuff to do, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
That too. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Awesome. Appreciate it, man. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Sign off right now, all right?
It was fun.